Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We'll be getting started in just a few moments. Hello, everyone. We're just waiting for people to log in. We plan to get started in about 1 minute at noon. Thank you for joining us for the State Natural Areas Program Roundtable.
Hello, everyone. We're just going to give folks, I'm watching the participant numbers increase here over the next minute. We're just going to give everybody one more minute to join us. We've got a nice crowd registered for our program today. All right. I think we'll go ahead and get started. Folks will join us as they can. I'm Lisa Smith, the Executive Director of the Natural Areas Association, and on behalf of the staff and board of the NAA, I'd like to welcome you today to our State Natural Areas Program Roundtable. I'm going to facilitate, I'll tell you a little bit about the organization. I'm also going to facilitate today. Our chair of our State Natural Areas Program Roundtable, Mike Leahy, is unable to join us today. He got pulled away at the last minute, so I'll happily facilitate today's program. The roundtable is a unique opportunity for those of you who manage natural areas for state agencies to learn from experts and each other on a variety of topics relevant to your day-to-day responsibilities. And we're really pleased to be able to host this quarterly roundtable, especially now with digital technology. We're convening this roundtable more frequently than we were able to in the past. So we encourage all of you to engage throughout this program today with the speakers and each other through chat, which you're used to doing these days. During these presentations, feel free to pose your questions, offer your own ideas and your resources. Again, we want to give this the feel of you all sharing with one another your information and asking the questions that you have. We will have a kind of a dedicated Q&A with the presenters after both presentations are given a little bit later in the program. And again, our goal is not only to provide you with this learning opportunity, but to create this environment where you can be a resource to one another. So for any of you who are not familiar, or this is your first time to a Natural Areas Roundtable, or you're new to the organization, I just want to take this time to tell you a little bit about us and tell you about some upcoming programming that we have. We're the Natural Areas Association, and as NAA, we are a national nonprofit organization that serves practitioners who manage ecologically significant landscapes to protect biodiversity ultimately. Our organization contends that protecting natural areas in perpetuity requires quality science to inform practices and access to reliable resources. So given this, we provide science-based content for natural areas practitioners and researchers seeking applied science, practical solutions, and knowledge transfer related to the management of natural areas. The sectors we serve include state agencies that house natural areas programs, as well as state parks and forestry programs, land trusts and regional agencies, as well as the federal land management agencies, all who manage land for their conservation and natural areas values. We share a suite of programs, products, and services that offer a broad spectrum of current and emerging issues, methodologies, and best practices. And we do that in a, in a manner that's useful and convenient for busy practitioners. The programs are designed to achieve on-the-ground outcomes and to encourage practitioner participation, especially with one another. So I'll tell you a little bit about some of this programming, but I'd like to bring an opportunity to your attention first. We're proud to celebrate the people and organizations that make exceptional contributions to the ongoing protection of biodiversity and ecologically significant landscapes. You are the unsung heroes who do this work and do it against oftentimes a lot of odds. So we look forward every year to celebrating those of you who do this work. Many of you are familiar with the George Fell Lifetime Achievement Award and the Carl and Becker Stewardship Award. And this year we're launching a third award, the Rising Leader Award. This award complements the George Fell Award and the Carl and Becker Stewardship Award and recognizes an individual who during the first 10 years of their career has developed and or implemented a new idea that addresses an old issue in natural areas research, protection, or stewardship, or someone who's made some other significant impact in our field. The call for nominations is open right now, and it's open until June 10th. So if you know anybody that might fit this category or any of the others, please do consider nominating them for one of our awards. To complete a nomination, just go to our website, naturalareas.org, or email us at info@naturalareas.org for more information. The 2022 Natural Areas Conference will be held this September, the 6th through the 9th of September, specifically in Duluth, Minnesota. It will be our 49th annual conference, and we are so pleased to be in person finally with you all. Duluth, if you've not been there, is located on the shores of Lake Superior, the largest of the Great Lakes. The northeast area of Minnesota is renowned for its natural areas, offering boreal and hardwood forests, extensive lakes, bogs, and wetlands, as well as savanna and upland prairies. So much to see in relation to this conference that will be happening there. Our agenda will feature over 100 presentations developed by and for natural areas practitioners, including keynotes and plenary sessions, concurrent breakout sessions, half-day hands-on workshops, and field workshops. So check out our website for more information. We will be opening registration soon, so be on the lookout for that as well. And we hope to see you in Duluth. On Tuesday, June 28th, we will be hosting a virtual symposium, something else that we wanted to bring to your attention. The title of this symposium is Shared Stewardship, Collaborating to Effectively Co-Manage the Chippewa National Forest in Northern Minnesota. This will take place on June 28th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And the focus of this is an MOU that was signed between the U.S. Forest Service and the Leech Lake Band of the Ojibwe tribe. And this MOU was gone into to address desired vegetation management conditions and develop a shared decision-making process for resource management on the Chippewa National Forest, which is within the Leech Lake Band of the Ojibwe Reservation. The MOU establishes a framework to allow the band and the forest to collaboratively advance shared priorities, coordinate investments, and implement projects on a landscape scale across shared boundaries. It's a unique overlap of boundaries and jurisdiction that provides leadership and provides leadership and staff the opportunity to implement shared stewardship through this MOU, enhancing the partnership between the Forest Service and the band. This symposium will consider the unique relationship and describe some of these collaborative projects. So we hope you will join us for that exciting symposium. We also offer webinars, a webinar series, and in 2022, our webinars are offered on the third Tuesday of every month at noon Eastern time. We have 3 upcoming webinars, May 24th, June 21st, and July 12th. All information for those webinars is on our website, so be sure to check those out. And without further ado, let's jump to our program today. Today's topic, flowing naturally, restoring stream connectivity through barrier removal with local, regional, and national partnerships. We'll consider why natural areas managers should be aware of and supportive of barrier removal projects that restore stream system connectivity regardless of the actual location of the barrier. The presentations will demonstrate how stream barriers can be inventoried, prioritized, and removed. And examples include national perspectives, including some Western states, the Southeastern US, and specifically Arkansas. Also, programs and projects from the Southeast Aquatic Resource Partnership and the Arkansas Stream Heritage Partnerships will be highlighted. After both presentations offer their remarks, we will ask both of our presenters to participate in a cumulative Q&A. In the meantime, I'll be tracking those questions as they come in. We also have 2 stewardship shorts for you today, one from the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation and another from the Virginia Outdoors Foundation, excuse me. Stewardship shorts are 5-minute pre-recorded videos related to the topic that describes a project, methodology, best practice, or challenge. So enjoy these and think about submitting one of your own at some point in the future. After each of the stewardship shorts, there'll be some opportunity for questions and discussion. We'll move to an open forum at that point, which is your opportunity to raise new topics, challenges, or achievements in chat or by raising your hand. If today you raise your hand, we'll be able to allow you to talk more. We'll actually turn you on so that you can get your questions, offer your comments, get your questions answered, so on and so forth. So let's go ahead and move on to the program. That's some of the background you'll need for today. We've got 2 presenters for you today, Kat Homke and Daryl Bowman. Kat is the GIS coordinator for the Southeast Aquatic Resources Partnership, SARP, and she'll kick us off today. Kat earned her BS in wildlife conservation at the University of Delaware and recently received her Master's of Environmental Management degree at Duke University's Nicholas School of the Environment in 2012. Kat's currently working with SARP on a variety of tasks, including managing the dam database for the Southeast Aquatic Connectivity Assessment Project, CCAP, managing the CCAP program, providing GIS services for a variety of projects, including the shoal bass threats assessment and updating aspects of the SARP website and projects database. Following Kat will be her collaborator, Daryl Bowman. Daryl is Assistant Chief of the Fisheries Management Programs for the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission and Vice President of the Natural Areas Association's Board of Directors. Daryl is Assistant Chief of Fisheries Management at the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, overseeing statewide fisheries programs, and his professional history includes positions with the Arkansas Natural Heritage Commission as Director of their Natural Areas Program, the Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries, and the private sector. Daryl is a member of the American Fisheries Society and has served several leadership positions with the Arkansas chapter of that national organization. He earned a BS degree in Fisheries and Wildlife Management from Arkansas Tech University in Russellville, Arkansas, and an MS degree in Zoology from University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, Arkansas. With that, I'd like to introduce Kat and thank you both for our program today.
Thank you so much, Lisa and Moira, and thank you all for having me today. I am definitely new to learning about this group, but recreating in natural areas with my family is pretty much my favorite thing to do. So I'm really excited to be here and talk with you more about barrier removal and remediation. And so I will just share my screen here. Okay. There we go. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit more about SARP's Aquatic Connectivity Program, specifically about how we're working to build a community of practice across the Southeast and beyond to make barrier removal and remediation more commonplace in the United States. And so just a little background on SARP. SARP, or the Southeast Aquatic Resources Partnership, is one of the fish habitat partnerships under the National Fish Habitat Partnership. We're one of the oldest and largest partnerships. We cover 14 states and Puerto Rico. You can see our boundary there on the right. So we have a steering committee that's made up of several state, federal, and NGO partners. And we are also a joint committee under the Southeastern Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies. So our steering committee is made up of each of those member states. And then we also have our Southeast Aquatic Habitat Plan. And this plan helps us to meet our mission to protect, conserve, and restore aquatic resources across our political boundaries. And so that plan, within it, we have several of these goals. One of them is objective number 3, which is to improve or maintain watershed connectivity. And so that's really how we got into the practice of removing and remediating aquatic barriers. And we created a program to do that. Our connectivity program has 3 main program areas. We have a GIS-based inventory, which is really the foundation of our program. It's a living inventory where our partners can work together to add barriers to our inventory and really add that local relevance into our work. And then we have a prioritization process, which takes that inventory and uses it and prioritizes it for identifying the best possible projects to work on. And then finally, we have aquatic connectivity teams. And these teams are in several states, not all of our states, but they're essentially groups of people working together at the state level from various different organizations, trying to make that barrier removal more common by doing other things, including working on education and outreach, streamline permitting, but also taking the results of our prioritization and trying to implement those projects. And so those are our 3 program areas, and I'm going to go through them in detail, but I'm also going to talk a little bit about how this program is really, really successful, especially when identifying barriers on natural areas, including public lands and conservation easements and other types of natural areas. So before I get started on our inventory, I just want to share this map. This is our current project area for our GIS-based inventory. You can see it is not just in the Southeast. We do not cover those states as SARP. However, with funding from the Fish Passage Program, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Fish Passage Program, we've expanded into the other Fish and Wildlife Service regions that you see here on this map. So our gray states here are the ones where we currently have a draft of an inventory on our public facing tool. And then by December of 2022, the Pacific Northwest will be added as well. And so we're working with the other fish habitat partnerships in this effort. And so our inventory really consists of 3 main types of barriers or 3 data sets. We have dams, assessed road stream crossings, and waterfalls. And all of these data are located on ArcGIS Online within the Fish and Wildlife Service and their ArcGIS Online platform. And each region has a hub. These hubs are where hundreds of partners can access the data, but also incorporate their local knowledge about what is happening on the ground. Obviously, there are lots of undocumented barriers, which I'll share some more information about that in a moment, but those undocumented barriers and really the potential social feasibility of removal or remediation is so important to actually identifying actionable projects. And that's where our partners come in, especially in editing our inventory. And so many of you probably are aware that the number of dams that we know of is underestimated across the landscape. So the national inventory of dams for the United States has about 91,000 dams documented. And these dams are greater than 25 feet in height or 50 acre feet in pounded volume and are normally regulated by state agencies. And so 91,000 dams is a lot of dams, but it's just a drop in the bucket to what is actually out there. And so what we've been doing over the past 10 years, starting in the Southeast, is to identify these undocumented structures. And we've taken several steps to do that. We've gone through each dam safety organization within the state agencies and tried to identify any additional data sets on smaller structures they have. In the West, we have water resources divisions and departments. We also have been looking for dissertation information from students that have digitized or identified undocumented mill dams and other barriers. And we've also taken another step to model dams using the National Hydrography data set, the streamlines and the stream and the water body areas, to model where these estimated farm ponds are. We're also looking now at LIDAR to identify undocumented low-head dams, and also our partners adding dams to our inventory via those hubs I just mentioned. And so we've gone from 90,000 dams, only 40,000 in our southeastern area, to over 400,000 dams in this area that you're looking at here. And so it really, while obviously not every dam is going to be removed or can be removed, understanding the degree of habitat fragmentation across the landscape is really important in helping us to make management decisions, but also to understand what's really going on and what our impact is. Just to hammer it home there, definitely have blown the NID out of the water when it comes to documenting what's really out there. And so just a little bit of a look into our hub. This is what it looks like. We have 7 operating aquatic connectivity teams within our states in the Southeast. And in those states, we have the most local editing that goes on in our states within each of these areas. One of the things that we've been working on is what we call potential social feasibility reconnaissance. And this is unique within our inventory, where we have our partners go in and identify whether or not you'd want to work with a landowner on removing their barrier, or if it's not worth it, if it's a pond with several docks around it, if it's a large dam being used for hydropower, that's, a big reservoir. We don't want to target those dams for proactive removal at this time. And so we work with our partners to code these dams based on whether or not you'd want to pursue them as a project. We call it potential social feasibility. And these dots are showing you the ones that have been coded that way. We've done this for about 18,000 dams in the Southeast. And this coding plays into our prioritization tool because it can be used to filter the dams that we're prioritizing for potential removal. And so now, other than the dams, I want to talk a little bit about road stream crossings. Road stream crossings are obviously where a road crosses a stream, and at those road stream crossings, you'll have structures, often culverts or fords. In Arkansas, slabs, sometimes called slabs. And these structures may or may not be passable to aquatic organisms. With dams, it's a little bit easier to say, a dam is a dam that usually has some issues with fish passage. However, with road stream crossings, you end up having some that might be completely passable and some that aren't. And the only way that you can know is if you have a field crew go out there and take some measurements at each site and then identify the degree of barrier severity at that site. And so across all of the states we're working in, we've gone through and tried to identify any place a person has gone to look at the structure and take some information, regardless of the methodology they used. Did they visit the site and identify whether or not it was a barrier? And all these green dots you're seeing is where there was a partner in the field who did that. And so there's millions of road stream crossings in this area. 37,000 of them have been assessed. It's a drop in the bucket, obviously, but it has been done in many cases in priority areas where you have a priority species. And what we found that across the board, 46% of the sites visited were barriers. However, if you look at areas in the mountains at higher gradient, you have more like 60 to 70% of them are barriers. So a lot of these are causing issues in addition to the dams in our landscape, and understanding that is another piece of the puzzle to understanding what's going on across these political boundaries. And so we took that one step further and we adopted a standardized protocol for folks to use in the field so that they could collect data at these sites, but not spend too much time out there with some of the protocols that would take a really long time at each site. A standardized protocol was developed, a rapid assessment by the North Atlantic Aquatic Connectivity Collaborative. And so we borrowed that protocol and we've trained about 300 people to use it. And they have assessed over 10,000 crossings now in the Southeast. And we are now working on that in the West. And when we do that, When folks are trained, they then can use the application, the Esri Survey 123 application, to go out in the field and collect those data. And when they collect the data, it comes in and colors itself based on severity, and the pictures are there. So that's a piece of our inventory with that on the ground field assessments. And then we've also partnered with bat biologists who have been working in these structures to identify hibernating bats. And oftentimes when we see bats, we will tell them about those bats, and they can go back to those structures to do their assessments. And then when they're out in the field, they'll collect a little bit of our data as well. And so they have helped us with that for over 500 crossings in the Southeast. And you can see some of these are huge, huge, huge structures that we wouldn't have surveyed otherwise. And you can see they're huge barriers. So really amazing partnership there. And so I'm going to skip over the waterfall data set for now, because it is a national data set that's created by the USGS. But I wanted to move into the prioritization framework. And so our prioritization tool is located at connectivity.sarpdata.com. And this really is a snapshot in time of our inventory. Our inventory is always being edited, and we frequently will take a snapshot of it and run some statistics and other analyses on that data and put it on this prioritization tool so that our partners can visualize the inventory and prioritize the structures. This tool was created by the Conservation Biology Institute and Astute Spruce, and funded by the Fish and Wildlife Service, as well as several other partners, Forest Service, state agencies, and state wildlife grants, American Rivers, and many others. But our prioritization tool really is focused on improving or maintaining watershed connectivity and supporting management decisions. So it has the goal of identifying priority projects for our partners. And because of that, we don't do a whole lot of calculations on the front end in terms of indicator data that we use to prioritize. We have 4 indicators that we use. We use the network length. So for each barrier, we calculate the number of miles opened by the potential removal. We look at the upstream network of each barrier, and we look at it to see how complex it is, whether or not that upstream network is altered, and the percent natural land cover in the floodplain of that upstream network. So we're really trying to reconnect high quality habitat here, which many of our natural areas, that is exactly what it is, high quality habitat. And so these 4 indicators are combined into 3 scenarios. We have just a network connectivity scenario, and then we have a scenario that looks at just watershed condition, but then we have a combined scenario, and that's the one we use the most with our partners in the connectivity teams. And that essentially is a combination of the network connectivity and the watershed condition to get at where are those big ecological bangs for your buck, as they say. And so to show you how this tool works, what happens is you hit prioritize. And when you do that, you'll end up at a page where it asks you whether or not you want to select dams or road-related barriers for your prioritization. We will have a combined scenario shortly, but right now they're separate because not all areas have assessments of road barriers. And so when you do that for dams, you can then select the geographic area that you'd like. And so I just wanted to share what it looks like if I selected all of the states, because I want to show a little bit of something really interesting that has to do with natural areas. So, but before I do that, you can see in the whole entire area of these states, there's 300,000 barriers roughly. And on the left, you have all of these filters. So we have the indicator data that I just shared, but what really helps us get down to that local relevance and on the ground implementation is using these filters and our partners using them to whittle down the list to find some actionable projects. So you can look at the number of miles opened. You can select only those barriers that open more than, say, 5 miles of habitat. You can look at only those barriers that are in a watershed that has threatened endangered species or trout. You can also look at dam condition if it's available. And this is just looking at the miles gained. This is how you would use the filter. But one really interesting thing that I wanted to show is that when we look at land ownership, which is also a filter, you can select the barriers that are located on state land, private conservation easements, Forest Service land, other types of federal land, joint ownership or regional land, and other private conservation land. So you can look at all of these potential natural areas and filter down to the dams located on these areas. And then we can contact the appropriate landowner or agency and start trying to identify whether or not some of these are possibly socially feasible for removal. And so we did do that a little bit in some of our states and with the Forest Service. And so one example of that is on private conservation easements in the state of Florida. So in the state of Florida, we received a state wildlife grant to do this potential social feasibility reconnaissance on almost all of the dams in the inventory. So we had someone look at each of the dams and determine whether or not they think that calling that landowner or talking to someone about that structure would make sense. And so from that, 487 of them were coded as potentially socially feasible. So you can then in that state use that filter and get at those 487 dams. One of them that kept coming up as a high priority for us was one that was on a conservation easement. We ran that land ownership filter and found a dam on a conservation easement that looked great. It was on a Nature Conservancy easement. And it opens up 33 miles to the main stem Apalachicola River, which contains many threatened endangered species. And so that dam in particular is called the Sweetwater Creek Dam. And again, open 33 miles of habitat. And it's a small dam. No one actually knew it was there. It came from a data set of digitized ponds on a PhD dissertation project. And so it has Gulf sturgeon in that downstream creek, and then listed mussels as well, oval pigtoe, fat three ridge, and even a listed plant in the surrounding upland area. And so removal of this dam would improve the hydrology and the temperature of the water that's flowing into that main stem Apalachicola River. And so it was very easy for us to contact the Nature Conservancy as well as the landowner and try to understand if this landowner would be open to removal. And indeed they were. And so this dam is currently going through the permitting process and hopefully will be removed in the next 2 months. We hope. That process has taken a little longer than we thought, but this is a really great example of how if we were to look at all the conservation easements that we have documented in the National Conservation Easement Database and filter our dams based on that, potentially we might be able to get a better shot at a landowner agreeing to remove their dam because they might be more likely to have a conservation mindset. And so the Forest Service is an additional example of an amazing partner. We've gotten funding from the Forest Service and American Rivers to inventory and then perform that social feasibility reconnaissance on all of the dams on their lands for Region 8 and then Region 9 and Region 6. So Great Lakes as well as the Pacific Northwest, and the Great Lakes and Pacific Northwest are happening right now. And then Region 8 happened a few years ago. But in Region 8, several of the dams came up as a high priority for removal. And this one is one in Arkansas and the Ouachita National Forest. This is the Mine Creek Dam. And it was actually a dam that was built legally, I believe, by a previous landowner that was actually has passed away. And so the Forest Service contacted the new owner who owned half of the dam. They owned half and the owner owned the other half. And it ended up being removed very recently. But this dam particularly reconnected this wild and scenic river. You can see it perpendicular to that tributary. That's a wild and scenic river. And so it opened up that entire tributary to that river, improved the temperature regime. And there are leopard darter in that watershed downstream. So improving that was really important. But again, this one, no one knew it was there previously, and it had no purpose whatsoever. And the Forest Service was great about working to remove this. And the Arkansas Stream Heritage Partnership, which you'll hear about from Daryl, is one of the connectivity teams that I mentioned. And they really came together to make this project happen fast. Everybody came together and filled in different niches within this project management process to make this dam come out very, very quickly. And so that's a really great example as well as dam removal on natural areas. And another really amazing example that I'd like to share is in the South Carolina Aquatic Connectivity Team. There is a land trust that we're working with. And this is one example of what I think could be something that could be expanded out from within the whole Southeast region and beyond, where land trusts could work together with folks looking to remove barriers and contact the owners of some of the easements that they hold, but this Natural Land Trust in South Carolina actually has been buying land with dams on them and then removing the dams and transferring that land to the Forest Service and other agencies. And this one down below is the example of a dam on Matthews Creek, which is like a premier trout stream, Southern Appalachian Brook trout stream in South Carolina. And so they bought that property, removed the dam, partnered with many people in the aquatic connectivity team, and it's been removed recently. They've done this 3 other times. And then they're also looking to assess and replace culverts on the lands that they own, and potentially on working with some of the owners where they have conservation easements. So again, a really great example of working with land trusts that I think could be expanded potentially with contacting the Land Trust Alliance, which we haven't quite done yet, but it's on my list. And I would love it if folks on this call might have some ideas about that as well. And then finally, just a really quick example that this can also happen with road barriers, the road related barriers I mentioned earlier. Oftentimes our partners like the Nature Conservancy and the Forest Service will assess a lot of road crossings in a priority area, such as this Conasauga River Basin in Georgia. And these road barriers, once they use our protocol, the road barriers are prioritized. And then they work towards removal by acquiring additional funding from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, NFWF. And these barriers have been removed as well. So working with counties, but a lot of the times it's Forest Service, Fish and Wildlife Service, refuges, state parks, and natural areas. And that's where you get the most landowner approval happens on these public lands and natural areas. And just to show, there are over 4,000 barriers that have been assessed on natural areas already. Many of those have been in Forest Service because they've taken an active role to assess their own structures, but I think it could be done in all of these other natural areas in these states. And so this program of ours really has been happening for 10 years. And in the past 5 years, when we started looking at road barriers, we've quantified over 275 completed or proposed projects in our region, but 20 of them were influenced by this tool. So either they were already on people's radar, and then they use the protocol to survey them and then prioritize them for some justification. But most cases, these barriers were surveyed and they came up as high priority. So then they were proposed for removal or replacement or replaced already. And so it just shows some success that's happening around this community of practice that we're trying to build across these states. The same can be said for dam removals. 228 completed or proposed dam removals over the past 10 years, and 19 of them have been influenced by this inventory and tool. And so that just shows the real success that has come from this community of practice. But where the rubber meets the road is really in these connectivity teams. And so you can see in these maps, the dams that have been removed that we've tracked are in these teams where we have this direct partnership and collaboration and working together to get these things done on the ground. And Arkansas is, don't tell anybody, probably my favorite team, but because in Arkansas, there's so many potential project managers on the ground that can do a lot of this work and get things done. And that's one thing that these teams, sometimes there's not always project managers that actually can implement projects. But Arkansas really has some amazing momentum happening, and you'll hear from Daryl about that here next. But just to wrap it up, just wanted to say, I think going forward, the infrastructure bill presents a tremendous opportunity for us to identify priority sites that we can work on with this new funding coming through. And I think looking to natural areas and managers of natural areas to look at assessing some of these road crossing barriers and prioritizing them, as well as dams, and see if any of these might be potentials for removal at that more regional scale. When you have a large landowner like the Forest Service, we're looking a little bit at BLM and others in the West, but we have not quite gone down the land trust road yet, but I would really, really like to do that and work more with land trusts to see if we can't look at identifying and removing and replacing some barriers in those areas. And so that's all I had. And I just wanted to say again, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, any questions? I think we do after, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Kat. Daryl, you are up.
Hey, hi. Hopefully you can hear me and see me now.
We can.
This is, thank you, Lisa. This is really a great forum. I can't say enough about Kat Hankey and working with Kat for several years now and SARP. Another person involved is Victoria Ruddle with SARP. They're just, you can see what a great resource SARP is. And Kat herself has been so passionate about running this connectivity program and working with us teams in the states and the Southeast. And it's really exciting to see how the program has expanded to all those Western states and other places. That shows you what great work they're doing. I'll go ahead and share my screen or attempt to. Let's see. Is this the right screen? Lisa, tell me.
Yes, it looks like it is to me.
Okay,
You got it.
thank you. So I want to play off of what Kat just showed y'all about this larger national regional picture. And now we'll come down and talk about the state of Arkansas and our connectivity team and our efforts to remove barriers in Arkansas. So this gives you a great perspective on sort of national, regional, and now down to the state. And I'll give you project examples down to a local level and how they happen. And I'm trying to focus on, like Kat did, projects that are associated with some form of what we think of as a natural area. And so I hope this is good informational stuff. I've got a lot, and hopefully it's interesting. I'll try to focus on these three things. I want to tell you about why barriers are a problem. We haven't necessarily talked about that much. And how Arkansas is using partnership via this connectivity team program to work on restoring stream connectivity. And then I'm going to give you lots of examples. And the point of that is, if you're in places where this is or is a thing already, maybe it's not that useful. But if you're not in a place where you're focused on barrier removals or there's not some collective working on it, I just want to try to relay how we're making this work down at the project level and at this partnership level. So first of all, what's the Lowhead Dam? Here's an example of one. This is one up in the Ozarks in Arkansas on Mill Creek. Mill Creek is a tributary to the Buffalo National River, arguably the most prized natural area in Arkansas, run by the National Park Service. This tributary, this dam is actually on Mill Creek up in a little canyon. And you can see it's built on top of some natural bedrock features. This is actually at a place that was an old amusement park, or was an amusement park when I was a young man, a boy. This was called Dogpatch USA. And it was part of an amusement park. And now this land is owned by Johnny Morris, Bass Pro Shops, and is being developed as a nature park, similar to another place in Missouri. Just an example of a Lowhead Dam that was built for an interesting purpose, and they're built for all kinds of purposes. Here's a Lowhead Dam in a neighborhood in West Little Rock. It's just a slab of concrete blocking the stream. And this picture just shows visually some of the obvious problems with damming streams and Lowhead dams. Lowhead dams, quite simply, are structures that block a river and water flows across the top of them. There's no water control structures or release structures in any way. They just simply block the stream, water flows across the top, and are built for many, many reasons. So most of the folks on this call, most of you watching and listening, are some sort of natural area manager. You're probably trained in some science-based manner, and we're all biologists and ecologists. And damming streams causes obvious problems from our perspective, and I just listed some here. It's one of the really worst environmental perturbations we do to our stream resources, but we have lots of reasons for doing it. But that's our perspective. It's important to keep in mind that these dams and barriers are built for a lot of reasons and serve a lot of purposes. And the problems with them from our perspective aren't necessarily what's important to other people out in the world. If you look at these bullets, the point is these are the problems with these barriers that really are triggers to create barrier removal projects when you're dealing with not us biologists and ecologists. It's a very important point because a point of today is to talk about how there are barriers in or associated with natural areas that you're probably going to be interested in removing and restoring those stream processes. But if those barriers are off of natural areas, but affecting a natural area, well, it might be one of these things that's of concern to the dam owner or the decision makers that might decide whether a dam should stay or not. Low head dams, I'm going to talk about the human safety next, but Arkansas is a great example. The second leading industry in Arkansas is tourism. The economics associated with that tourism are extremely important to this state. Only agriculture is a more economically important industry in Arkansas. So, well, what's tourism now? Outdoor recreation and tourism was already growing. Everybody has a mountain bike, everybody has a kayak, and then the pandemic hit, and that really increased. So those kayakers and people want to get on streams and float and paddle. That's outdoor recreation, that's tourism, that's very important. Maintenance costs are often found. People that own dams, for whatever reason, the dam requires a lot of maintenance and it gets expensive, especially over time. So that's often a reason people are ready to get rid of an old dam or something, or these road crossings. It's often because the maintenance costs are so high in maintaining them. And notice I put the biological, ecological thing on the last bullet. That's usually not the most important thing to everyone else. It's the most important thing to us practitioners. So here's the problem. Low head dams, by definition, water flows across the top. That creates a downstream hydraulic. At high water levels, this becomes literally a human health hazard. In the Arkansas Boating Safety Manual that you're seeing this from, this is called a drowning machine. This hydraulic downstream of low head dams kills people. Here's an example. This is the iconic War Eagle Mill on the War Eagle River in Northwest Arkansas, where I grew up, and it's a extremely popular spot with public access to the river right here. You can see the picture of the river at high flow, and it forms that nasty hydraulic. And my whole life, I've heard of people drowning at this dam during these high water or flood events. And one of the problems we have with that is people don't realize what's causing the problem. And it's a low head dam in this case, but the articles might say canoeing accident or something like that. It's almost never attributed, at least in Arkansas, to what exactly the problem is. So I just want to make that point that can be a driver, and it's a very important driver for barrier removal, certainly here. Some states, such as I think most of this information I have right here on this slide is from Iowa. Some states that have a lot of low head dams have dam safety programs associated with informing people about the problems with low head dams, putting up signage or barriers to keep people from getting to low head dams because of this problem. Here in Arkansas, our dam safety program is geared toward only emergency action plans below large dams. And we're working on, we've got a lot of new leadership in that program and in that agency right now. And we're talking about how we might expand into considering low head dams and these issues in that program. Here's an example. This was the original water supply for Fayetteville, Arkansas. This is Pump Station Dam built on the West Fork of the White River in Northwest Arkansas. And this is over 100 years old. It hasn't been used in many, many decades, and yet it's still there. So there's an obsolete dam, no longer serves its purpose, and the city of Fayetteville owns it, and they are a willing dam owner, and they're ready to get rid of it. So this is a project that we in the partnership are working on. And think about students at the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville, 35,000 of them come in every year now. And there's an outdoor recreation program where they can go rent a kayak, or they may own their own kayaks, and they run over to the West Fork of the White River and they don't know anything about it. And it's at high water and they run into this. So there's Pump Station Dam at high water with the classic deadly hydraulic. And it just scares me to think about the potential for this all around the state. So very important to keep in mind when considering barrier removals that really is the human safety element that can be really important for consideration. This is another classic low head dam in Arkansas in the city of Harrison, Arkansas. This is Crooked Creek, tributary to the White River in northern Arkansas. And this is a classic low head dam, and it's a good time to make the point. Everybody locally refers to this as a weir. They built this weir just to create a lake in a city park 25 years ago, and it's been a maintenance problem since, and people have drowned here since. We are currently in a project that involves multiple partners to remove this dam. And I'll make the point that it's referred to as a weir because in engineering circles, most engineers refer to these as weirs. So if you hear weir, it's a low head dam in most cases, same thing. But as Kat pointed out, in Arkansas, the vast majority of what we have that are low head dams are actually road crossings. We're a very rural state. County governments are responsible for transporting people. And we've got, if you notice my opening slide, my title slide, it was a picture of the stream networks in Arkansas. We have lots and lots of mileage of streams, and we have, I don't know, thousands of these road crossings, perhaps tens of thousands, I don't know. We're working on that base. And so not only are these functioning as low head dams in every case, but then we ask people to drive across them. So the safety factor is even more exacerbated. And the culverts themselves that are usually through these dams are the source of problems with drownings, because people that don't realize what's going on will go swimming above these, get trapped in a culvert. It's happened a lot. So again, barriers, these are examples of barriers of why they're bad. And obviously people need to get across streams. So what we need in this case is to replace these with a span bridge or a bottomless culvert, or something that lets that stream and sediment pass and restore stream processes, and lets people be more safe about how they're getting across the streams. So you get the idea. I'm going to skip over a couple of things. So here's a reminder. I'm going to talk about our connectivity team now and how we created it and who's involved. So you can consider doing this type of thing in your state or your area, or maybe you just need to form a partnership to remove a barrier. So here's some ideas about how we've gone about that. This is, we are the Arkansas connectivity team for SART, but we gave our team its own name. We call it the Arkansas Stream Heritage Partnership. It's a good reason for that. We created our own mission and vision statement. And this is a true partnership. We don't have bylaws or elected officers or nonprofit status. We are just a partnership of a lot of folks that are working together to focus on barrier removal in Arkansas. And this started in January of 2017, but it's ongoing and evolving process. And it's really fun. But we're focused on this very simply. Low head dams that are obsolete, inoperable, damaged, they may or may not be intact. But notice this comes straight from American Rivers that you don't have a dam removal project unless you've got a willing dam owner. So that's very important. This is not a regulatory effort. This is not a forced effort. It's an opportunistic effort that's growing into a strategic effort. But the second bullet also points out that a lot of these problems are actually road crossings. So that's the two things we're focused on either removing or replacing to make the situation better for the stream and to regain stream connectivity. So this is not everybody involved with our partnership, but it's as many logos as I could throw on this slide. And I created this in January of 2017 when we started our partnership, our connectivity team. And I'll probably interchange the terms partnership and team the whole time, but I'm referring to the stream connectivity team with SARP, Arkansas Stream Heritage Partnership. At last, I actually counted it up. We had 122 individuals on our list. We call them members, but again, there's not a membership. But that's how many people are on our Google Groups email list that we created just to communicate within this partnership. And at that time, last I looked, and again, this was a few months ago, we had people from at least 35 different organizations in Arkansas. We started this whole thing in partnership with American Rivers and SARP. And here in the state, it was Arkansas Natural Heritage Commission and Arkansas Game and Fish Commission were the state agencies that were involved in getting this started. And we started this off by conducting a 2-day workshop on dam removal, basically that American Rivers puts on, and then we give it a local twist. This was January of, I think I said 2017 earlier, 2018 on this slide. We had 1 day of workshop activities, presentations in a sort of a classroom format and a lot of coordinated activities. And then another day we went out to field sites where Central Arkansas Water and the Nature Conservancy helped us. And we looked at some low head dams and talked about starting this partnership and what these issues are with these dams. I just have to note that again, we're loosely organized, I would call it, but ever increasing in our organization and strategical efforts. I have to thank these people. These are the people right now, it's totally voluntary, who want to be on the steering committee and it's the most active folks in our membership, if you will. And these folks are really doing great stuff in working. We're all working together for this cause. And notice all the different organizations represented here, just in Arkansas. It's really exciting that all these groups and people are working together. We operate both opportunistically and strategically. The strategic part is everything you just heard from Kat, where we're inventorying, prioritizing, targeting. We're using information such as lists of species concern, conservation priority watersheds, things like that, to target areas where we need to focus on barrier removal. But alongside with that, and as we got started, what's been the bulk of our work so far amongst the partnership is what I'm calling opportunistic. It's partners that have projects that are coming up for whatever reasons, and we're just working together to pursue those opportunities. As we've gotten more organized, we have created a Google Drive location with all these folders where partners are welcome to, anybody involved, is welcome to put information in here or look at information in here about various projects. There's one folder called projects. That's where we're trying to keep a running list of every project that any of our partners are dealing with. And then we've got specific folders where we're trying to populate those with information about those specific projects and so on. So it gives you an idea of how we're trying to develop the communication and the information flow, because that's a huge point of what we're doing. As of like February, in looking at this information, you can kind of see how much success we've had over just a few years and where we're at with specific projects, how many there are, how many have been removed. And this is probably not accounting for everything that's going on. Again, it's a fairly loose partnership. And I know there's many projects going on with partners that they're not necessarily reporting or counting as a partnership project. So there's a lot of good stuff happening, and this probably doesn't account for all of it. As a partnership, we have over time had annual get-togethers, workshops where we invite whoever wants to come, talk about barrier removal, report on projects, talk about new projects, and just coordinate and communicate about it. That's been really well received and very popular. And we're looking forward to getting past the pandemic and doing another live one soon. Notice in January of 2022, we for the first time, really working virtually with the partnership, we've created a new goal-oriented approach. We have to credit the idea coming from the Georgia connectivity team, where the steering committee created a loose set of goals and then went to the partnership to modify and make those goals something much more concrete. And then we've asked the membership to weigh in on who wants to participate in pursuing these goals. And we're going that route right now. So that's getting more strategic. We also have had, if you'll notice, twice and once just a few weeks ago, the culvert assessment training that Kat referred to. So we're getting more and more people in our state trained to assess the culverts and how they are fish passage problems, and we're building that inventory. I'm not going to go through these. These are the goals we've just set, and it's been really great. We've already had members step up and say, I want to lead a committee to work on goal number 1, goal number 2, goal number 3. And so I'm really interested to see where this goes, taking this approach and see if this doesn't generate more good barrier removal projects. So let's talk about actual barrier removal. I'll try to move along. What we're trying to do in these cases is very simple. From the left, there's a dam and creates a reservoir, and this could be at any scale. And then we remove the barrier and try to move the stream to the right where it's fully restored. And that can be a very lengthy process, certainly if left to natural causes, but the process can be sped up a lot through restoration techniques such as using natural channel design engineering. It's kind of just a matter of money. Barrier removals can be done in extremely expensive or a high-tech manner, such as use of explosives, or down to if you have very small systems and small dams, you can even remove those with a hand crew. Most of our projects in Arkansas involve heavy machinery, like you can see in the middle picture. And the barrier removal part, I think people think of as being the hard part. I mean, it's really not. Yes, it's expensive. Yes, it's technical. Yes, you have to be careful. Yes, it requires a lot of partners, but it's the restoration and restoration done properly, if that's necessitated, that is really expensive and really technical. I've borrowed this slide just as an example of natural channel design engineering involved with Pump Station Dam. And this is courtesy of Watershed Conservation Resource Center, one of our partners in Arkansas. So it's just to show that there's actually a real engineering science to restoring these streams when these barriers are removed. And depending on the barrier and the location and the stream system, this can be really complex. There's just another slide, just another example. Thank you, Sandy Formica and Matt Van Epps, for providing these examples for us to show. The City of Fayetteville and WCRC, along with multiple funding partners, are soon to remove Pump Station Dam that I showed you earlier. I just wanted to mention, here's a dam in Northwest Arkansas on Little Sugar Creek called Lake Bella Vista Dam. This actually is not really a project in the partnership. But it's a great example of a project that's been mired in controversy for over a decade. The dam is getting more and more damage with each flood event, and now, as of last year, is fully breached. And yet there's lawsuits involved and other problems. I show it simply to make the point that when you talk about barriers in natural areas, well, this dam is in a huge city park and part of a massive green space and trail network in Northwest Arkansas. Really cool stuff. And if the dam can ever, in looking at planning and building support for removing the dam, there was a landscape architect drew up plans for the city of Bentonville. And they looked at replacing the dam, what the park might look like, but there's the park with the dam removed and the free flowing stream flowing through it. So it's an example of how you can use planning and visualization to sell a project, and how this is a natural area that will be restored or have a restored free flowing stream if this project ever gets off the ground. Here's an example of a barrier, a dam in a state natural area here in Arkansas. A really neat little slot canyon in the Eastern Ozarks that's kind of a rare habitat all into itself. There's a plant there that's found so far only found in that location in Arkansas, and there's some species of concern in this stream drainage. This is a very small dam. I know it's hard to tell in this picture, but it's an example of a dam that the choice has been made to remain in place because this natural area, a lot of the leverage from local support to create this natural area and put it in conservation was actually for historical reasons from the local folks more than the ecological reasons. And for now, it's best to leave the dam in place and support the local history aspect, and down the road build support for removing the dam. Here's an example of Arkansas Game and Fish Commission working with local county governments and doing the right thing. We have a nature center out on several hundred acres of land in Northwest Arkansas on Crooked Creek. Crooked Creek is a great Ozark stream resource, by the way, with one of our best smallmouth bass fisheries in the state. Native smallmouth bass are very popular sport fish in Arkansas. This was a slab crossing that we refer to them, a low water stream crossing. There it is at high water. There's the dangerous hydraulic. Obviously, it's impassable. Took a lot of money and expense and coordination, but we replaced it, we breached it, and built a span bridge to get to that nature center. So much better for the stream and people who want to access that resource that we provide, a natural area with an education center. Here's a couple of examples from the Ozark National Forest. Kat showed you how the forests have actually been a real lead in barrier removal and road crossing replacement. And we got to really thank the Forest Service. And certainly we can speak for, I can speak for Ozark National Forest and Ouachita National Forest in Arkansas. The Mine Creek Dam project that Kat showed you was Ouachita National Forest. Here's Matt Anderson is our partner in the Ozark National Forest. He provided some of this information. This is there's a couple of stream crossings. This is a picture of one of them where a low water slab crossing was replaced with a span bridge. And the map on the left shows that this is a tributary to, it's hard to see that it's there, but to the Mulberry River, a state and nationally designated wild and scenic river. So these tributaries, it's important they have proper ecological function for the downstream natural area, in this case, the Mulberry River, an extremely important resource to us in Arkansas. And you can see the beauty of the span bridge replacement, now those stream processes are replaced. Water and sediment can flow through there. Is it perfect? Is the floodplain constricted still? Yes, but it's so much better than that slab and the problems with the slab. Here's another Ozark National Forest project on Cripple Branch. And it's a great example of, again, Kat referred to the inventory of culverts. You can see on the left, this culvert would not pass aquatic organisms. And it was replaced with a bottomless culvert, which is a simple, low-tech technique, relatively speaking, that restores stream process the best if that's the best you have to go on in this situation. You'll notice that opened 1.8 miles, just this one structure right here of stream, headwater stream resources. Let me move to a larger scale project. And this is a great example of a natural area being created, being restored for different reasons that you might think of. Central Arkansas Water supplies water to a huge population in Central Arkansas, where I sit in Little Rock, Arkansas. Central Arkansas Water has a reservoir called Lake Maumelle, and it's on the Maumelle River. And this is a map upstream of the reservoir of the Maumelle River, where through all the different watershed protection efforts Central Arkansas Water makes, one of them is to acquire land and restore land to its natural state. And they work closely with partners such as Arkansas Natural Heritage Commission and Arkansas Game and Fish Commission to restore native plants, native natural communities and habitats. And I won't go into detail, but that's what this map is showing you. Some land they acquired that was a sod farm running the length of this part of the Maumelle River. And in the river itself were 4 low-head dams, which were also road crossings that created the ability to irrigate water for the sod farm. And those are those red diamonds you can see labeled RC1, RC2, RC3, and RC4. So Central Arkansas Water acquired this land, started into all the land restoration to native habitat, and also is working on removing these barriers to let this river flow freely. It's an interesting way to improve water quality for the drinking water supply reservoir downstream. Here's a picture of 3 of the dams. They're pretty large. It's a pretty good sized river system, but each again are a road crossing. And you can see the 2 pictures on top and bottom on the left are the same dam. One picture with low water, no water flowing across it. That's a problem. The other is higher water where water is flowing across it. And the picture on the lower right is number 2, I think, dam. And you can see no water is passing, the culverts are clogged. So there's just so many problems with these structures. The top picture is dam number 1, top right. There's water flowing across that crossing. We've talked about all the problems with it. All of these are slated for removal, and actually one of them has been removed. Let me show that to you. Notice I didn't list dam number 3. This is where dam number 3 was. And about the time Central Arkansas Water acquired this land, nature blew this dam out, and you can see someone standing on the remnants of it. And this is the scar that was created by the dam, all the bank erosion created by the dam. But also when the flood took it out, this was all exacerbated and made worse. That area was restored with there was no desire to put a crossing back in of any kind. Water Conservation Resource Center was a partner on this with Central Arkansas Water and others. And that's the restored site. And this is restored using natural channel design engineering and other bioengineering techniques. Great job. Stream so much better off. So here's dam number 1. Central Arkansas Water partnered with Army Corps of Engineers and I think Section 206 funding to remove this and replace it with a span bridge because they needed access to this part of their property. Quick video just for entertainment. Removed in action. Just to make the point, heavy equipment, once again, is the method being used. that dam was removed and replaced with this span bridge. So now look, stream process is restored. Is it a perfect scenario? No, but it's so much better than it was. And credit Central Arkansas Water for pulling off this project. Notice those are three bottomless culverts with a bridge built over them. I'll try to close here. We're running out of time. This project is a really cool one, deserves a little bit of attention. It's a great example of a barrier that was causing severe problems that most people didn't even realize and required a huge restoration effort to fix. Rockhouse Creek, the simple message is on the left was a low water slab crossing built by the local county government. And what we needed to do was replace that with the picture on the right is the replacement, the span bridge. But it wasn't just that simple. Here's the beauty of it is this is a great example of restoration for natural area purposes. Rockhouse Creek is 550 acres that the Nature Conservancy acquired between parts of the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, Madison County WMA, a state natural area that Arkansas Natural Heritage Commission owns, and TNC preserve areas up on the north part of this map. And the river flowing through all of this is the Kings River, another extremely important special designated stream in Arkansas. So Rockhouse Creek is central to all of that. Here's that slab crossing. It was creating all kinds of damage downstream, plunging and eroding sediments, and upstream, the gravel bed load was stopped, was causing all kinds of bank erosion. It was deemed that we had to remove that barrier, but we had to do a priority 1 restoration to do it, which meant we're going to build a whole new stream channel. This is an aerial of that downstream of this low water crossing, and that's Rockhouse Creek flowing into the Kings River. And you can see the sediment plume associated with Rockhouse Creek. It was so unstable, the bed load was just moving tons of gravel sediments into the Kings River, again, a very source. So in trying to close rapidly and not take up much more time, if you look at the bottom picture, the original channel is on the right, Rockhouse Creek. We chose to go, the partners responsible for the project, which was the Nature Conservancy primarily, along with Arkansas Game and Fish Commission and our Stream Team program. Again, a lot of other partners involved, but that was the primary 2. The decision was made to go to the field, the bottomland adjacent to the stream, and create a whole new stream channel. And you can see it under construction here. Again, using natural channel design techniques, creating grade control structures, creating a whole new channel, all the natural channel design techniques being used. My keys aren't working properly. Okay, and we moved over to the new channel, created a new span bridge, and there you can see the riparian area. The whole goal is to restore that whole field into a new riparian forest. There's volunteers planting trees and staff. Great example, multiple partnership required to pull this project off. Can't remember the dollar figure, or somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million. And these things just require partnership. And this is a great example of what seems to be an innocuous barrier causing a huge problem, and what it took to restore the problem, but what it means to a huge landscape and stream ecosystems, these natural areas. For us biologists and ecologists, just want to mention University of Central Arkansas helped with the biological monitoring, and there's some of the fishes involved with this project. And there's a look at the final product. Natural Areas folks are going to post that link in the chat. I hope when this is all over with, when you get a chance, go to that link and watch a 12-minute YouTube video that we produced about this project. It's really neat, really informative. Thank you. Sorry to take up that much time, but this is just a great occasion. I really appreciate getting to talk about this.
Thank you, Daryl and Kat. And Daryl, you did not take up too much time. Those were tremendous projects that were so important to share. So yeah, thanks to you both. We've had some good questions coming through chat, some of which Kat has been able to answer as Daryl, you spoke. So hopefully some of those questions that were posed that did get answered, you all were able to take advantage of. There are a few more for you both though, if you're ready for that. Jason Miller has a couple. His first was that it seems like a lot of dams on small rivers were constructed by small, medium-sized municipalities as infrastructure for municipal water intakes. Has there been any luck that you know of working with such communities to retrofit these intakes after a dam removal to effectively operate on a free-flowing system? Any idea, any examples of that?
I don't have any examples of that. Kat, do you?
Not personally, but I do know that American Rivers does. And that's one thing that they have done before in Pennsylvania, I believe. So we have some American Rivers contacts that could help with that question.
Okay, great. Anybody in the audience have any examples for Jason? You can raise your hand or you can just post in chat.
In almost every case, I'll say with these
Yep.
dams in Arkansas, the water supply has been changed to something completely different. And that's why I'm not aware. We probably do have situations where there's been a retrofit or something may happen. I'm not aware of it. Certainly hasn't been part of any of the most recent projects the partnership's been dealing with. In most cases, something else was deemed water supply and the dam was just left there in our case.
Okay, fantastic. Nick Mikash asked, have you had much resistance from the public in these removals? And if so, how did you manage that? He's particularly interested in historic value concerns from the public.
Kat, should I take that?
I can think of one example in Georgia, and I'm sure you have more, but there's one specifically in Georgia that was owned by the University of Georgia. It's the White Hall Mill Dam. And the University of Georgia is an active member of our connectivity team there. And I think usually, it has to go through that. I believe it's part of the permitting process to address the historic preservation, but there's mitigation that can be done. And in this specific case, I know it was a real difficult, long process, but they were able to do certain things like signage and other things like that, where they could compromise and be able to still remove part of the structure. They didn't call it a full removal, even though there's just a piece of the structure on the bank still. So sometimes they'll do that. They'll leave like a piece of the dam on one side, or I know at one point they buried, I think it was a Northeast example where they would like bury part of the historic artifacts. And they actually preferred that because people wouldn't be messing with it or anything like that. So there's multiple different ways, I think, to mitigate for historic preservation and still allow the site to be enjoyed for its historic attributes. But that one is a hard one too, I think.
Okay.
Daryl, do you have any of those?
Yeah, in Arkansas, for sure. That's a great point, great question. It is often part of these projects. In Arkansas, we have I can keep this brief, but we do have mechanisms and programs and agencies in place to govern this. There's Arkansas Historic Preservation Program houses the person that really comments on this if it becomes an issue. And it's part of the permitting process for removal in many cases. Is this a historic structure? If so, it'll kick it over to Arkansas Historic Preservation Program and that part of the program for comment. We actually, the individual that was in that position actually participated in one of our workshops in probably 2019, where we had our partnership workshop along with a partner in Northwest Arkansas called Beaver Watershed Alliance. And we had about 70 attendees from across Arkansas. And that person from that program spoke to this issue. And at that time, he basically said that preserving a structure for historic reasons is almost never going to be the case. There's many other things we can do, like Kat mentioned, to preserve the memory of that structure and the evidence of that structure, but usually the structure can go ahead and be removed. The question was, is it an issue? Yes, it is an issue. Yes, it has to be dealt with. And I think probably every state has a different way of dealing with it.
Great. And Trevor mentions that Glines Canyon Dam on the Elwha is now a safe viewing platform for the public with lots of interpretive signage. So paying homage and honoring these sites. Okay, let's see. The next question that came up. Jason Miller, one more question. As many of these dams now act as decades-old sediment traps, what does coordination look like in accounting for the sediment sent downstream upon a dam's removal, since there's almost always a bigger impoundment somewhere downstream managed by someone else? And Trevor chimes in that and the considerations around toxic sediments tied up in some of these projects, and just what are your thoughts, or what are your experiences with just managing the sediment load behind some of these dams?
In terms of the sediment side of things, I know, I have not been the project manager on any dam removals where the sediment has been a significant issue, but I do know that there's several options with, you can dredge, or in some cases, it makes sense to let it go. And it depends on, I believe it's the ratio to like the stream width and the impoundment size. If you have a wide one, you can very much just kind of lower the water, and that flat area, the sediment will be stabilized that way. But again, I've only been kind of watching from where I sit and other people manage these projects. Do you have any specific examples?
Like Kat said earlier, and we mentioned a few times, a great partner in all this is American Rivers. Tremendous source of information and know-how, and in many cases they'll get involved with specific projects. American Rivers when we have our dam removal training, when we had that workshop for 2 days, that was part of the discussion where they talk about many projects. This is an issue and has to be dealt with, and often it involves testing of those sediments beforehand, before the project, to see if there's any toxic issues, and then remediation has to be established according to each project on its own merit. Like Kat said, sometimes it needs to be removed, sometimes it's not an issue. You can let it incorporate into the stream channel. It's a very individual process basis. It definitely has to be considered. Interestingly, in Arkansas, every project I've talked about or showed you today, the sediment accumulation is not really an issue. These are often small projects, small systems, and it's best just to let that use natural channel design restoration to make the sediment reincorporate into the stream the right way. A really cool thing to mention is the project I talked about for Central Arkansas Water. To me, it's almost counterintuitive to get my head around what they were doing, but it makes sense when you think about it. Those low head dams are all upstream of a water supply reservoir, just like the person mentioned in the question. So there'd be an argument, you would think, to keep the dams in place, to keep that sediment trap that they have accumulated and keep it out of the downstream reservoir. But dam number 3 was blown out by nature. Well, what happened? All the sediment that dam number 3 had backed up went downstream to the drinking water supply reservoir. That's what they don't want to happen. So far better to remove the barriers themselves, Central Arkansas Water, and deal with the sediments in that removal process and in the proper restoration techniques to keep from a situation where if that barrier gets blown out eventually, which it will, because they're obsolete, they're dilapidated, then those sediments are going to go down to Lake Maumelle and affect the drinking water supply reservoir. So really interesting scenario in considering the sediments.
I think American Rivers' favorite comment about this is dams do not make great toxic waste facilities, storage facilities. That's like the thing they say in all their workshops.
Oh, funny. Yeah, and all too true. Okay, one more. This is, Kat, you kind of answered this, and I just thought I'd give Daryl an opportunity because this came up during his talk, but Kimberly Elkin from Oklahoma asks, do you have a list of contractors that do this type of work? Her organization or agency is using RCI Construction out of Mena, Arkansas for our barrier removal project in August in Oklahoma. She had trouble finding someone who would give a reasonable estimate and had experience doing this type of work. Daryl, I don't know if you had anything to offer. Kat offered that American Rivers has an MSA firm list that she believes has more contractors, and Fish and Wildlife Service, the Fish and Wildlife Service's fish passage program has also done some of this work in-house in Region 4. Anything else that you would have to
Certainly,
offer there?
yeah, a few good points to make, and hello, Oklahoma neighbor. We're close partners with the states that are around us. The Fish Passage Program that's a good point. They conduct business by either writing a check to help out with the project, or they'll bring in their personnel, rent the equipment, and do the work themselves. So there's one contractor right there that's incorporated in that program. If you partner with them on a project, they can come in and do the work. So that's really neat to keep in mind. To take that to another discussion, to me, that's kind of the point of the connectivity team, and at least the way we built our team in Arkansas. If you look at that list of people that are, some of them may be watching this, there are nonprofits that do stream restoration. There are private engineering firms that do stream restoration in our membership. So we are collectively and collaboratively in communication. So at least in our state, and in the case of our neighbor in Oklahoma, that person could access our partnership and look at our members and talk to some of the people in the partnership. I don't think it's right for me to promote a certain firm in doing work, but that's one of the points that we're trying to do in Arkansas is make sure we're in communication with those firms, and straight up engineering firms and nonprofits that do this work are part of our membership for that very reason, to try to help foster partners on these projects and who can actually conduct the work.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And Trevor makes a comment here that he'd like to plug Ecological Workforce, www.ecologicalworkforce.org. The link's right there. They're working to train contractors, laborers, machine operators to be more intimately involved in the actual restoration work happening. They become collaborators instead of just tools. Thank you, Trevor. That's great input. All right. Well, I have just one quick question, and actually it was Trevor who's been active here, also mentioned American Whitewater as an organization. And Daryl, this went back to your original, some of the points you were making around low head dams and the danger to recreational users on the river. Has that organization been a partner in any of this work? Do you see them, Kat? Maybe you're from a national perspective more familiar. I don't know how. I know American Waters, but just wondered if from, getting as a recreational or an organization focused on whitewater recreation, if they're helpful in terms of getting, advocating and promoting for dam removal.
I think in terms of that larger perspective, they're currently right now, at least in terms of identifying some of these really dangerous structures, they have been working with the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership in pushing a bill forward for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to create a national low head dam database that we have been recently very involved in. And I think we've been making more partnership opportunities with American Whitewater. It's just starting to ramp up a little bit at that. I think they operate more at that larger scale. We have had some conversation though with, I believe it was North Carolina, perhaps, that they have someone that comes to our connectivity team calls. So I know that they do have a lot of information on that. And I think right now we're just trying to figure out the best way that we can like data share and make sure that we come together for that effort, potentially with that larger inventory that might be happening that comes with money too. So we'll see that bill passes.
Okay, great, great.
It's an interesting point with projects that I've been involved with or that I'm aware of within our partnership. American Whitewater, was that who's in question?
Mhm.
Has not been an active partner to my knowledge, but it is a great point we can kind of take the discussion in another direction or do another session. Is there are other ways to replace these structures or take care of these structures to provide fish passage, but also increase recreation. And that is to create whitewater features or park and play areas to take advantage of this elevational difference where these barriers were in the restoration process. And we do have some places and some projects in Arkansas like that. We have some going on right now. There was a recent article in the state of Iowa, has an outdoor magazine put out by one of their state resource agencies. They just had an article I have a copy of where this is part of the dam removal process in Iowa to create fish passage. In a lot of places, they're creating whitewater play areas that will also pass fish and sediments, but they're providing that recreational aspect. So it's a really neat way if a project location or partners involved desire. And again, one of our members is Arkansas Canoe Club, which are paddling enthusiasts. I think we're probably going to see more of that kind of thing incorporated in Arkansas projects. From our perspective, and I've said this to partners before about this very issue, as long as we're creating somewhere in the project velocities that will allow fish passage, and those are in the literature in most cases or can be worked out, then more power to us to create recreational opportunities for folks to enjoy at these same sites. And it'd be a good way to go in the future.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Daryl. Okay, I'm being told we should move on. And I want to thank you both so much and hope you will stick around because we're hoping to have a few minutes here at the end to continue to have question, answer, and discussion. So let's move on to some of these great to the two stewardship shorts that were submitted. Maura's going to start to pull those up. There are two, as I mentioned earlier. I'll tell you what they both are right now. The first one is submitted by Jason Miller. He's the Natural Areas Program Manager for the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, the Division of Natural Areas. And the title for this video is Riparian Restoration Project at Sequatchie Cave Class 2, Natural Scientific State Natural Area. And I hope I didn't butcher that name, Jason. And then Maura, I'll just go ahead and announce the second one, and then you can just play them back to back, and then we'll do Q&A, have an open forum. The second one is Restoring Native Brook Trout at Bull Run Mountain Natural Area Preserve. And this is submitted by Taryn Bromser-Cloden, who is a preserve specialist with the Virginia Outdoors Foundation. So enjoy both of these videos. Please post your questions in chat or your comments, and we'll circle back to a little open forum when we're done. Thanks.
Hello everyone, my name is Jason Miller with the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, Division of Natural Areas. I want to talk a little bit today, or provide an update on an ongoing but nearly completed riparian restoration project we've been overseeing at Sequatchie Cave State Natural Area. Sequatchie Cave State Natural Area is located in Marion County, Tennessee, at the intersection of two physiographic provinces, the Cumberland Plateau and the floor of the Sequatchie Valley. Sequatchie Cave State Natural Area was originally designated in 2001. Until relatively recently, the site was one of the smaller natural areas in Tennessee at only 12 acres. Some recent acquisitions have increased its size to over 120 acres, with the goal being to protect the watershed leading into Owen Spring Branch. This high quality and pristine stream emanates from the site's namesake, Sequatchie Cave. Just downstream from the cave, Owen Spring Branch remains home to two extremely rare invertebrates, known only from Marion County, Tennessee. The royal snail, a federally endangered species, is known from only two other sites nearby. The state-protected Sequatchie caddisfly is known from only three others. Although the area immediately surrounding the cave and several hundred meters downstream had been protected by the natural area for a couple of decades, runoff from the town of Sequatchie and nearby Valley View Highway posed a potential threat to the rare species found in the stream. Thanks to a grant from the Tennessee Department of Agriculture Non-Point Source Pollution Fund and the committed efforts of partners at the Southeast Tennessee Resource Conservation and Development Council, a plan was engineered to ensure that surface runoff from nearby residential areas and roadways would no longer deposit household refuse into the stream, thereby threatening the native species that are found there. The first major goal of the project was to stabilize the current ditching in the natural area with rock and vegetation to prevent any further sedimentation of the stream bed. Aesthetically appropriate fencing was installed along the entirety of the project to ensure that off-road vehicles and ATVs could not enter the project area. Collapsing culverts were replaced, and flow into and out of the culverts was improved. One other major element of the project that required heavy equipment was the installation of large catchment basins to ensure that any litter caught in the surface flow would settle out before entering the stream. These basins and the associated routing of flow after the basins helps ensure that the water remains clean before entering the stream. Another major goal of the project was to remove non-native fescue plantings from throughout the natural area and to replace that with native grasses known from the area. Additionally, the site will be supplementally planted with native herbaceous species. And lastly, after all the earthworks had been completed, native woody riparian species like tag alder, silky dogwood, leatherwood, willow, and buttonbush were planted to help reestablish a natural streamside plant community. A project of this scale just isn't possible alone or in-house, so we'd really like to thank our many partners who helped ensure we got the work done. Perhaps most importantly, the folks at KCI Technologies who implemented most of the work on the ground. In summary, we hope that all the work that we've implemented at Sequatchie Cave State Natural Area benefits not only the royal snail and the Sequatchie caddisfly, but also local residents who live near the natural area. Thanks for listening today, and I hope you enjoyed our short presentation.
Natural Area Preserve, working for the Virginia Outdoors Foundation. So we are a 2,500 acre preserve located between Prince William counties and Fauquier counties in Virginia. And today I just want to talk to you a little bit about our project to restore native brook trout in one of our waterways. So just a little bit about the site and a little bit of history and how it connects to the topic today. So this part of the preserve is known as Jackson Hollow, and it's considered our biodiversity hotspot. And it's a really amazing place with lots of different plant and animal communities. And one of the parts that probably makes it so diverse is this wonderful spring-fed creek called Cattarpin Creek. Now, up until the early 1970s, Cattarpin Creek was actually dammed to create a man-made lake that was used for recreation and had a little bit of a resort built up around it. But in the early 1970s, I believe it was Hurricane Agnes, swept through and actually destroyed that dam. And in doing so, of course, it removed that blockages and reconnected this waterway to the surrounding watershed. Now, since then, this property has become under the management of the Virginia Outdoors Foundation, and we've made a few different steps to try to help it along in its restoration process. This including planting willow trees and things like that, and also this program that we have in partnership with Trout Unlimited and their Trout in the Classroom program to raise and release brook trout here in Cattarpin Creek. So brook trout have pretty sensitive needs. They have a very specific temperature range they'd like to be in. They'd like to very clean water as well. So back in 2019, we were able to ascertain with the help of Trout Unlimited that Cattarpin Creek was a suitable site based on the fact that it stays pretty cool all year round, again, because it is spring fed, and also because of the variety of macroinvertebrates that call at home. And we also do sampling multiple times a year to make sure that is still the case. So it makes sort of an ideal environment for our little brook trout. And this led, of course, to those partnerships where we work with students of pretty much all ages, from as young as preschool students all the way up through high school students, to help them have a place to release their trout that they've been raising in the classroom for a few months. So far, like I said, we started this program back in 2019, and we've released hundreds of trout since then. You can see we had a really big spike in 2020, and that was as a result of basically some emergency releases that needed to be done ASAP because schools were closing. People weren't going to be able to go into the building to take care of their fish, so they needed a place as soon as possible. So we were able to step up and provide a good, healthy location for the trout to go. And we continue to release hundreds of trout every year. We've done 3 releases so far this year and plan to do more, and hope to do so and continue in the future. Now, like I said, we can hope to continue doing these releases, but of course, it's also important that we make sure that they're surviving and thriving in this environment. So we've been conducting summer survivorship monitoring, where we go out and just make sure that we're able to find brook trout, months after they've been released, and that they're looking healthy, they're looking the appropriate size, they're able to make their way upstream. And so far, every year that we've done that, we've had success and been able to ensure that our brook trout are doing well in this environment. And in fact, they're doing so well, and we've had such great success with this project so far that we are considering doing some quote unquote trout terraforming, where this creek is really suitable naturally, we could actually do some things to increase its suitability for our trout survivorship. So this would include something like building larger pools and things like that to help our trout have an even better place to live. And this is pretty exciting because we believe we have the first established brook trout population as you start to head west out of DC. We're only 30 minutes outside of Washington, DC, so it's pretty cool to have a brook trout population surviving and thriving in this area. So I'm happy to take any questions anyone might have, and thank you so much for letting me share this with you today.
Okay. Any questions about the 2 videos, the stewardship shorts that you just got to enjoy? Or any questions for our earlier presenters? All right. Well, oh, here we go. We've got one from Allison Joyce. What methods were used for building pools? And if our presenters are available, please go ahead and turn your videos on if you can. I think more they can. I'm not sure. Allison, can you let us know exactly who that was addressed to, or which stewardship short that might have been related to your question? Last stewardship short. Okay. And if you do want to talk, you can just raise your hand, Maura tells us. But yes, so.
Hi.
Yep, great.
Hi, this is Taryn.
Hey, Taryn. Thank you.
If that was, I think, addressed to us, we haven't, that was in the next step. So we have not yet built up new pools. So I can't really answer that because we haven't done it yet.
Okay. Okay. Well, stay tuned. Yeah, you're welcome to share your email address if Allison would like to follow up with you once that project's a little bit further along. Any other questions? Presenters, do you have anything else you'd like to offer the group? All right, well, I think we're starting to get a little quiet. This was really a great State Natural Areas Program roundtable, and once again, I want to thank Kat and Daryl for the really in-depth look at dam removals and stream restoration projects that they're involved in. Good luck with your continued work. And to Taryn and to Jason for contributing the stewardship shorts. We encourage everybody on the call today to consider stewardship shorts as a way to, quickly share projects that you're working on, methodologies, techniques. We will be posting that information on our website as soon as we're done here. And yes, I want to just make a shout out to a couple of people, Jason Miller, Bill Holloman, Mike Leahy, who was unable to be with us today, are some of the folks that serve on the State Natural Areas Program Roundtable Committee for the Natural Areas Association. And I want to just say that this programming is coming to you because of this passionate group of folks who really, just have appreciated for a long time the opportunities that coming together as a community of practitioners creates for all of you. There's nothing better than to share your successes, your lessons learned with one another. And so we do have a passionate group of natural areas practitioners behind these roundtables. And the next one will be, let's see, we're going to have one, I think, coming up before September, but we will be organizing a roundtable at the Natural Areas Conference in Duluth. You'll be hearing more about that in coming months, but that is more along the lines of our traditional State Natural Areas Program Roundtable, where we would convene in person. So we know that won't be something that you can all take advantage of. We hope a lot of you will be able to take advantage of it, but we're working on ways to make sure that your State Natural Areas Program reports will be shared with one another. And Maura is reminding me that the next virtual SNAP Roundtable will be in November. So forgive me, I was thinking we had one in between now and September, but time is flying. So so stay tuned for more information on this. Stay in touch with us. Let us know what it is you really care about and need to and want more information about, and we'll do our best to organize some programming for you in that in that area. All right, and with that, thank you all for all the hard work that you do every day in this field. We appreciate your work. We appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing you and hearing from you all next time. All right, have a great day.